This is Dr. Greg Hall once again with Better Black Health, brought to you by Genetic Sequence Multivitamins, the only multivitamins tailored specifically for African Americans, giving you the appropriate amount of vitamin D, vitamin C, zinc, and leaving out some things that African Americans shouldn't have. Go to sequencemultivitamins.com to find out more. Today, we've got another treat. We are welcoming Philippe Douyon, MD. He's a board certified neurologist who completed his residency in neurology at New York University and a fellowship at New York Presbyterian-Cornell in clinical neurophysiology. Wow. He spent the last several years caring for people with neurologic disorders with a special emphasis on people with a history of epilepsy, seizures, and non-epileptic events. After spending years witnessing the terrible effects of neurologic disorders, Dr. Douyon realized that there were better ways to serve people to prevent the decline of brain health while supporting overall body health. Now, he's the author of Neuroplasticity, Your Brain Superpower, Dr. Douyon's BrainFit app, the founder of the Inle BrainFit Institute. He's a motivational speaker and a creator of the Take Charge of Your Brain in 30 Days course. And Lord knows I need to take charge of my brain. So welcome, Dr. Douyon. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Very good. So we'll start. Why are so many people so helpless when it comes to their own brain? They are just like zombies with their arms walking out. Whatever they do, why are people, or at least so many feel that they're so helpless? I can't do that. I can't exercise. I can't lose weight. I can't go outside and walk. I can't. All those I can'ts, my grandma would say, you never could with all those never could, as my grandmother would say. But why is it that that's so prevalent? People just, when it comes to their own brain, they just don't feel like they could take charge.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. It's all those limiting beliefs. I don't think people realize the power that they actually have when it comes to controlling their health, creating the success that they want for themselves, creating the lives that they want for themselves. And I think that the reality is that our thoughts are incredibly powerful. And from the moment that we're born, people have been fighting to control the way that we think, right? First, it's our parents and our families. Then as we get a little older and we go to school, it becomes teachers and our classmates. As we get older, it becomes, colleagues and employees and politicians and churches. And all of that sort of limits what we think about ourselves. And the reality is that we've got a tremendous amount of control over how our life evolves. And it first starts by what we think about who we are and what we're capable of.
Mm-hmm. So I'm going to put it out there. You didn't learn this in medical school, did you?
Yeah, no, definitely not in medical school.
Or maybe neurology fellowship, but it's a different. But learning about the physiology and how the brain works, like specifically as a neurologist,
Yep.
Did that inform your perspective in a way?
Absolutely. I think my knowledge of how the brain works, plus the experiences that I've had growing up, some of my own challenges. I talk a lot about the fact that I'm a 2-time kidney transplant recipient and how I've gotten through those tough moments in life. And a lot of that had to do with what I was thinking about, what I was focusing on. I wasn't always focused on, oh my God, woe is me. I've got these health issues. I, can't do this. I was out there, even when I was on dialysis, playing basketball with my sons, right? And my sons would be like, what are you doing? Like, you're sick. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm not sick. I'm kicking your butts in basketball right now.
Right. And your brain, your perspective changed that, because I've got people that drag off to dialysis and they've got to take a 2-day nap before they're ready to do anything. And then it's time for dialysis again. Right. But you can even change your perspective on that.
You can even change your perspective on that. When I was doing dialysis, right, because dialysis is physically and emotionally exhausting. So what I would do is I would do the late shift. So I would finish up dialysis like around 7:00 at night, go home, eat, go to sleep, wake up the next morning, felt better. And then I would kind of go and live my life. I still worked while I was on dialysis. I exercised on dialysis. I had a news agency following me around on dialysis. I traveled on dialysis. So the thoughts that we have are incredibly important, because oftentimes we're the ones putting limits on our own lives.
Right. And so those limits are self-imposed, but they're also, like you mentioned, the people will say, I mean, I've said a million times the number of people that told me I would never be a doctor, right? And that didn't help, right? It didn't. It was not. It didn't motivate me. It actually took a little of the wind out of my sails each time someone did that, right? Even it happened
Yeah.
anyway, but so what sort of practical advice when we're raising children, for example, and we are trying to have them be, good people, whatever that means, be respectful, be successful.
Mhm.
If we're deliberate about what we put into our kids' brains, we can change that outcome as well.
Absolutely. Not only if we're deliberate about what we're telling our children about what they're capable of, but also getting them to say it to themselves. Our
Mm-hmm.
own voices are incredibly powerful. So for me, I start off every day with affirmations. Like, I wash up, I'm looking in the mirror, there are things that I say to myself. I am so happy that I am successful, that I am loved, that I am healthy and fit.
Mm-hmm.
Then at some point in the morning, I write in my journal 10 things that I'm grateful for.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I'm constantly reaffirming things in my brain, whether or not they're true in the physical world or not. Right. like,
Right,
like
right.
that doesn't even matter to your brain. The truth doesn't matter to your
Yeah,
brain, you
yeah. Well,
know?
that's the Trump supporters. I didn't say that.
That's right.
Truth doesn't matter. It's what I love them no matter what, right? That's what they
That's
tell
right.
themselves. But that's part of it, though, isn't it? Isn't that
It,
like what you hear and what you? So the people who watch certain, I'm not trying to get political or anything, but the people that watch Fox News and they paint a totally different picture than the people who people at MSNBC, for example. We got two ends of the news spectrum, and
right.
you can watch the same event and turn on Fox News, and they've got a totally different take. And does that influence how? It's sort of a stupid question because I know you're going to say yes, but that influences how people think, right?
Absolutely. One of the things that I always say, and sometimes people get upset at me for saying this.
Mm-hmm.
I always say that if you compare Trump to Democrats, Trump is a brilliant speaker. And
Mm-hmm.
what makes Trump a brilliant speaker and the Democrats not so much is that Trump speaks in short phrases that are
Mm-hmm.
highly emotional, that
Mm-hmm.
get repeated over and over again, right? So, like Sleepy Joe for Joe Biden,
Right, right,
right?
right,
It's an
right,
emotional, short thing that your brain remembers, sticks to you because it's emotional,
right,
and everybody repeats it.
right, right,
The
right,
Democrats talk in theory.
right.
Nobody has time to take in theory.
Theory,
That's not
right,
how the brain works.
right.
And so when it comes to the brain, when you're talking about wiring your brain for success, right, it's really about repetition and using your emotions to help shape the narrative that you want to create.
And you've seen that people rechange their whole lives with that. I had a patient recently tell me he was just fooling around with this girl and who was 25 years younger than him, and she got pregnant. And so he said, I wanted to raise my child. I didn't really think anything of this woman. You know what I'm saying? But he said, I prayed, Lord, help me to love her. You know what I mean? And he looked at me like, and it worked. You know what I mean? It worked. He said, every day I said, please help me to love her. And he said he loved her more and more. Now they're a happy couple. But is that he was deliberate about mentally saying, I need to love this woman because I want to raise my child. And that was that. I mean, of course, people would say it was the prayer, but is the prayer? You're also talking to yourself when you're praying, aren't you?
Oh, absolutely. Do you know that when you pray or when you meditate, that there are changes that are occurring in the brain that we can actually measure?
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
so prayer is incredibly important. And here's the other thing that your patient was doing. When you tell yourself something, your brain is always looking to prove you right. So if you tell yourself, I'm going to love this woman, I want to love this woman,
Mm-hmm.
right? She
Right.
could, get on your nerves that day, but your brain is going to take you back to a moment that she was sweet and beautiful and loving and caring and be like, that's why you love her. So the
Wow.
messages that we tell ourselves are incredibly important.
So when you say I'm stupid, I'm not good at multiple choice tests. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Which I'm not. I'm not and never been good at multiple choice tests, and that was what kept me from being a doctor for so long, right? But you can't talk yourself into being better on multiple choice tests, can you?
Of course you can. So like if I tell myself that, oh man, I'm stupid, my brain is going to take me back to when I was in seventh grade and I got a 45 on a math test, even
Right,
though there were plenty of tests where I got 90s and 100s,
right,
right?
right, right.
And so even when I was dealing with kidney issues and on dialysis, I wasn't telling myself that I'm sick, right? Because yeah, your brain would be like, of course you are. Look, you need a machine to filter out your blood.
Right,
You
right,
need a
right.
transplant. You need this, you need that, right? But instead I told myself, I am healing.
Hmm.
If you're not good at something, just tell yourself, oh, I'm getting better at this.
Hmm.
I'm going to get there. I'm going to
I'm
be
gonna
able to
get
do
there.
this.
I'm gonna be able to do it. And when you are convinced of something, that really helps it come to fruition, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you've got to use, I always tell people, your emotions are the secret weapon.
Hmm.
A lot of people let their emotions use them, right? They're completely out of control. They don't know why they're acting in certain ways. But
Hmm.
if you can have your positive emotions, use them to really help you create whatever circumstances you want,
What you want?
you're going to find that you're going to be powerful.
Wow, that's amazing. So now I have this thing about, and we're both physicians, people taking their blood pressure medicine. You know how a lot of the premature death we see in African Americans to heart attack and stroke and whatnot is related to uncontrolled high blood pressure, which at
Sure.
this point I'd like them to take their medicine. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And they're so focused on side effects that they instantly have side effects. I mean, and so I'm like, I, I researched it, and then of course, African Americans disproportionately worry about side effects, and worrying about side effects increases your risk for side effects, right? If
Sure.
you're looking for a side effect,
You're going
it,
to
it
find it.
happens, right? Right. And so you know, my father didn't like doctors. He didn't like medicine. He didn't want to go to the doctor, and he ended up having stroke and heart attack, all that stuff after 60, right? Open heart surgery. And so I don't want to have open heart surgery. I don't want to have a stroke. I don't want to have a heart attack. And so I look at the pills that I take for blood pressure and cholesterol, and I just marvel. I think it's amazing. These little itty bitty things can lower my blood pressure. If you think about it, this little thing is smaller than 1/100th of a meal, right? It can change my blood pressure, lower my risk for stroke, make my end of my last years so much better than my father's. What a blessing. It's amazing. Then I take my pills, right? And I don't have any side effects that I'm aware of. But if people say, oh man, I hate it, as I'm opening each bottle, I hate it, and then that is informing their experience with the pills, isn't it?
Absolutely. The messages that you tell yourself around any situation are going to impact what your experience is.
Right,
And
right,
I think, especially when we talk about the relationship between African Americans and our healthcare system, it's one where there's a lot of conflict and mistrust. And that's why it's so important to have people like me and you in medicine, right?
mm,
That we can bridge that gap and hopefully people come to us and they trust us a bit. Um, because you're right, there are medications that can really help people get their health together.
right, right.
And all
But
you have to do is take it maybe once or twice in that
yeah,
day.
and it's a marvel to me,
Yeah.
but it's a curse to a whole lot of people.
Yeah.
A whole lot of people. Do I have to take this the rest of my life? I hope I take it the rest of my long life. You know what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
But how do we convince people that they have, or how do you, and you could tell me, how do we convince people that they have more power than they think?
Yeah. So I think two things. One, you have to meet people where they're at, right? So when I'm seeing a patient, if they don't agree with whatever the treatment plan is,
Mm,
it's not for me to force it down their throats because they're just not going to do it,
right.
right? So I've got to meet them where they're at, and then together we can come up with a plan that they feel really good about.
Mm,
The other thing is, I do think it's really important to have a comprehensive approach when working with any patient.
mm,
And so I spend a lot of time in Harlem. And one of the things that I often see, so Harlem's been very gentrified, right? So you've got a lot of white people in Harlem, Asian people in Harlem,
mm,
as well as a good black population in Harlem. If you go into Harlem without fail, doesn't matter what the temperature is outside, you will see white people running, jogging. They have their running clubs, they go running by themselves, maybe
Hmm.
they're on bicycles. You hardly ever see black people running,
Right.
right? And it's like, man, these white people are going to outlive you. They're going to outlive you and they're going to completely take over Harlem.
Right.
And all they're doing is using their body the way that their body was meant to be used by
Hmm.
exercising.
Right.
We
Right.
have to
Right.
stop living sedentary lifestyles. We've got to get our bodies moving. We've got to eat healthy. We've got to stay away from toxins like alcohol and cigarettes and drugs, those things that are killing us.
Right, and and I see the same thing looking out. I mean, I live in the suburb, and my home office is in the front of the house. White people walk and walk and walk, and I remember this guy looked like he was 120. He really looked horrible walking, if you know what I
Yeah.
mean. But every day he was out there, every day, and that's what you don't see, like you say, is black people being deliberate about walking. They're walking their dog, but it's like the dog doesn't even look like he wants to be walked that much. You know
That's
what I'm saying, right?
right.
The dog's like,
Yeah.
again. I watch our next door neighbor walk the dog. The dog looks like, come on now, I'm good. So but they're doing that, right? They know they need to do that, and there is some, I don't know, something in their culture, your microculture, that encourages them to do that. And so how do we change our culture so that, I mean, is it through conversations like this, or is it through, what's it through?
I think it's through conversations like this, but it's also about what we pass on to our children.
Hmm.
And so people always come to us and they're worried about genetics and what their families are passing down to them. Oh, I have diabetes because my mother had diabetes. I'm going to have heart issues because my mother had heart issues. It's like, no, your mother had heart issues because she never exercised and she ate poorly. She
Right.
passed that on to you. So your
Right.
relationship with your body is not a healthy one. You don't exercise. Your
Hmm.
relationship with food is not a healthy one. You're eating all this fast food, all this greasy food. Um, and so I think it starts with, well, what are we teaching our kids? What do
Hmm.
they see us doing on a daily basis? Do they see us exercising? Do they see us making really good choices about the foods that we're putting into our bodies? Are we taking our kids to go play sports, right? Are we doing that with them, right? So
Hmm.
like on Saturday mornings, I take my two sons, another dad and his son. We rent a basketball court if it's cold out, or if it's warm out, we go to a basketball court and we play those three kids, which they're not kids anymore, they're like all teenagers, against
Right.
us two,
Right.
which used to be fine when they were younger. Now they're kicking our butts.
Right. 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 Right.
you know
But you have it, but it's a routine, and that they're going to do that with their kids,
that's right.
right? And then my father, God rest his soul, he never took us anywhere exercising, right? He never took us anywhere. We went to the park, and he didn't even go out in the park with us. We'd go exploring. That's the older generation. So, but we can be deliberate, you would
Yeah.
say, about changing that scenario, and be deliberate about passing on what better habits there are. I want to spend a little bit of time. You specialize in epilepsy and seizures and whatnot, and I kind of looked that up before the interview, and it talked about African Americans. Wow, 2 to 3 times more likely to have epilepsy, to have a seizure disorder
Sure.
compared to
Yeah.
whites. Uh, do you have any idea what's behind this?
Yeah, we have higher rates of high blood pressure and diabetes.
Mm-hmm.
And what people don't realize is that high blood pressure and diabetes have a negative impact on the brain. So not
Mm-hmm.
only does it lead to potential strokes and a potential bleeding in the brain, but even
Mm-hmm.
if you don't have an obvious stroke or any bleeding in the brain, what we do see is that when people have high blood pressure and diabetes, the smallest blood vessels in the brain just don't tolerate that well.
Mm-hmm.
And over time, that causes changes in the brain that can lead to seizures, dizziness, headaches, difficulty walking.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's really important that we take care of some of these chronic diseases. We either minimize our risk of getting them, or if we do have them, we're really making sure that these things are under really great control.
So it's not like, in your idea, if someone has high blood pressure and diabetes, and they start having seizures, you're not wondering why are they also having seizures. You're thinking that's directly related in your mind to the high blood pressure and the diabetes and that inflammation. How you read about all the time, the black people have more inflammation,
Yeah.
right? And then that's that causes the pain, the aches, the pain, all the things, the fatigue, all this stuff that we have. And so what's an easy way to start to say, I'm okay, I want to take more charge of my brain. What's an easy way for me to start taking charge?
So it's doing the things that we should be doing to begin with. We talked about we need to be exercising, right?
Mm-hmm.
We need to get a good night's sleep. We've got to get 6 to 8 hours of sleep per night. Sleep is made for the brain.
Mm-hmm.
When, as we're going throughout our day, toxins are building up in our brain. And it's
Mm-hmm.
the deeper stages of sleep that are helping to clear out those toxins. And one of the things that we see is people who are sleep deprived in their 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s are more likely to get dementias like Alzheimer's later on in life.
Mm-hmm.
The same way that people who have diabetes are more likely to develop Alzheimer's. In fact, a lot of neurologists and neuroscientists will tell you that Alzheimer's disease is really just type 3 diabetes.
Get out of here.
So we've got to be sleeping. We've got to be taking care of any chronic diseases that we have. We also have to be making sure that we're eating really healthy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, stay away from the high carb food. Stay away from the processed foods. Stay away from the fast foods.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing I think people don't realize is alcohol is toxic to every part of the body, but especially the brain.
Mm-hmm.
And people who, even if it's whatever moderate drinking is for them, if it's a daily glass of wine, that has a negative impact on the brain and potentially leads to seizures, can
Mm-hmm.
lead to strokes, can lead to dementia. So it's really just doing the things, the healthy lifestyle things that we should be doing that helps us to take charge of our brains. And then also focusing on the thoughts that we're having throughout the day,
Mm-hmm.
shifting our thoughts from the negative ones to the positive ones.
That's amazing. So, what about my people who have insomnia? Because usually those people who have insomnia also have chronic pain. They've
Yeah.
got aches. This what they call the fibromyalgia. Everyone with fibromyalgia has almost has insomnia. You know what I'm saying, right? And you would say those two are probably linked. But how do you get someone to sleep?
I think first off, you want to look at their sleep hygiene. So you want to look at how they are preparing themselves, their brains and their bodies to go to sleep, right? So, as the sun starts to go down, our bodies start to secrete melatonin to tell us, okay, it's time to wind down.
Mm-hmm.
But when you look at people's houses, all the lights are on, right? The TVs are on, all the technology is on. I tell people, you need to get all the technology out of the bedroom. Only two things happen in the bedroom: sleep and sex. Get the TV out, get the phones out, get the laptops out.
Right.
People should stop eating at least 3 hours before they go to bed.
Mm-hmm.
People shouldn't, their last caffeine intake should be 8 hours before they're about to go to bed. So there are things that we can do in terms of our own behavior, our own lifestyle that will help people fall asleep. And if
Right.
those things aren't happening, then they see, people like us to help them.
Right, right, and it makes perfect sense. So I leave my cell phone and stuff downstairs when I get up and go. And I have a TV in the bedroom, but I don't watch it much, But the phone. But there are a lot of people that take their phone to bed. They're getting texts and bings and dings. That's not good, right?
That's not good. Even the it's not just the sound, but it's the blue light from the phone that's going to interfere with our ability to fall asleep. So
Mm-hmm.
get all of that out of the bedroom.
Right, right, right. So, tell us where if someone wants to learn more or see more about you, where can we go? What can we do?
So they can go to my website, inlebrainfitinstitute.com. So INLE brainfitinstitute.com. They can find me on Instagram. My handle is philippe.md. They can find me on Facebook and LinkedIn. So yeah, so
And
those are
you
the
and you
best places.
are there people you find that you just can't help?
Yeah, those people who are not ready to, you know, do the things that are going to help them, or people that are not ready to take away the things that have been hurting them this
Mm-hmm.
entire time, right? So if
Right,
somebody's not ready to let go of the alcohol or let go of the cigarette smoking, somebody's not ready to exercise, it's
mm-hmm.
impossible to help those people.
Right, right. But if you're willing to kind of, like you said, take charge of your brain in 30 days, that's a bold statement, right? I mean, that's
Yeah.
but you will step them through that process, and how much success do you have with that?
Oh my gosh, I've had people who couldn't get pregnant, right? I'm not an OBGYN.
Right,
They
right, right.
couldn't get pregnant, and all of a sudden now they've got their family of four. They've got two kids. I had a guy who he actually has epilepsy. He always wanted to do a music album. He finally put out his music album. Has
Mm-hmm.
people that have started their own businesses. So it really changes your life drastically,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because it's not just about the symptoms. It's really about the way that you think and the way that you're now going to evolve to create the life that you want for yourself.
That's great. And that involves, eating right, exercising, doing what you're supposed to do, self-affirmation. And sometimes you need help with what to say to yourself. Isn't that true?
Oh, absolutely, right? I mean, our brains are always, the primary function of the brain is to keep us safe. And
Mm-hmm.
so the brain is always going to tend towards the negative because that's how it keeps us safe.
Mm-hmm.
But part of taking charge of your brain is saying, look, I've got this. I know what we need. I know what my brain and my body needs. I'm going to be the leader that my brain needs me to
Mm-hmm.
be. And so I'm going to shift the way that I think. I'm going to shift the words that I use when it comes to how I speak to others and how I speak to myself.
Wow, that's great. That's just outstanding advice, Dr. Philippe Douyon. What a wonderful, a lot of information, a lot of good life changing, potentially life changing information that you have shared with us. His book, Neuroplasticity: Your Brain Superpower, is available on Kindle and on paperback at Amazon. He's got a podcast, Surviving Your Brain, with Dr. Philippe Douyon. Look for that on wherever you listen to podcasts, including here. And his course, Take Charge of Your Brain in 30 Days. You go to philippedouyon.com and track him down. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. This was great.
You take care.